morning, Stocktwits Nation. It's halftime in the trading year. I'm Katie Perry here with Shay Boloor as always, and our special guest, Jake Wu. Everybody's favorite chart guy is back. Guys, we're halfway through the year. I want the halftime report readout. It's halftime. We're getting together. We're talking about what went down. Jake, I'm gonna start with you. How would you color commentate the first 6 months of this year?
Um, kind of, I would say expected. Last term with Trump, there were some pretty crazy movements in the market, and volatility, headline-driven news. I think that's been one of the big ones. Is like just we haven't really been used to headlines just driving the market so aggressively. So I don't think that's over at all. I mean, we're already seeing it again with Elon and Trump today or last night, whatever that was. I'm sure there'll be something else today. But yeah, it makes things interesting, but at the same time, it definitely creates opportunity with the volatility and all that.
I was not expecting you to say expected. You're just like chill.
Fortunate enough being a chart guy, he just he knows
He's
it's
like,
binary.
"Whatever,
This is
man."
what it is.
Yeah. All right, Shy, were you expecting any of this?
No, I think I'm going to take the opposite take of what Jake just said. I was up and down. Volatility was the norm. I think we had not multiple. I didn't think that we would have a COVID level volatility and fear this year, and we did. The VIX hit a 50 handle. I did not think we'd have that in the first half of this year. I thought the first 100 days of a new presidency, I thought, okay, there might be some little left field ideas. I didn't think we would get to the point where it was the closest World War III we've ever had. That was something I was like, this is getting crazy. Q2 was one for the record books, but we came out of it resilient. If we're treating this as halftime, this just first half of this year proved the durability of this bull market. It's here to stay. The world almost blew up, but it didn't. And if you told me as we started this year that Trump was able to essentially hit Iran without starting a war, without causing an oil panic or a market crash, I would have said everyone's freaking delusional. But that's what happened. And now the U.S. essentially reminded the world we run the game, and the market can handle the heat because AI is still the main event, and showing that, like Dan Ives says, we're still in the third inning of this AI party. And it doesn't matter if you start a potential nuke war or World War III, that flip of a switch will not turn off in AI spend. And I think that's what's really carrying the market right now.
It is wild, the news cycle. How it almost feels like if there was a year-end recap at the end of this year, it would feel so stale because I feel like I've lived like 8 lives. And I think if there's like an MVP of the first half, you got to put retail traders up there, just like pouring money in after the April drop and just riding it back on up.
No, you nailed it. I mean, I treat, again, I'm rewatching Jersey Shore. Don't ask me why. It's just my dumb thing. I'm doing
Wait, Jersey Shore?
Yeah, don't ask.
Yes.
It's nostalgia because I graduated high school in 2011. That show was really peaking when I was a senior. Season 3 of Jersey Shore, that Miami season or season 2, it was really crazy. So I think this year I am treating this like a reality year, because even this morning we had Trump and Elon just restart that junior high debacle, and I thought that was over. I think a lot of Tesla shareholders thought that was over. Clearly it's not. And you hear Trump say already show who the next signs of we want the next Fed chair to be announced soon, while Powell is still in the seat and they still haven't even cut rates. And there's a lot of just headline grabbing news stories of this should not be happening at this scale, but it feels a little numb now. These headlines we're getting, the market's barely reacting, and everyone's forgetting Z and Trump, there's still a potential escalation down the road from that, and markets is not caring right now. And I think it's probably due to the retail being so aggressive on this dip, and it caused a V-shaped recovery. A lot of institutions did not participate in that dip buying, and they were on the sidelines. So there is trillions of dollars of liquidity that's eventually going to have to hit the markets, because the world's worst kept secret is rate cuts are coming. Doesn't matter whether or not Powell admits it. his window of cutting is diminishing rapidly. And I think right now we're seeing a lot of the markets front running that inevitability. And that's why we're at all-time highs. And doesn't matter what geopolitical tensions are, things are humming apparently, and you can't fight the trend.
Yeah, I mean, is season 2 Jersey Shore the one with the note? Can we
So
bring up
good, yeah. And then
I feel like this reminds me of like Trump and Elon, where it was like they were so into each other, but you knew it was gonna fall apart. The best part is like multiple people in the house know, therefore you should know the truth. Like this was the greatest thing to ever happen, ever. You had to be there. If you were too young to appreciate this, I'm sorry. Like this was the best television that's ever been.
well,
But yeah, it's kind of that same vibe right now.
let's go with that analogy right now. All right, so
Okay.
I think in that scenario, if you don't know, Ronnie cheated on Sammy like multiple times, and Sammy was just naive,
Sammy's sweetheart.
Sammy's sweetheart. So I do think in that scenario, I think Trump's a little like Ronnie, and I think Elon's a little like Sammy. I think the gals, Snooki and J-Lo, might be Scott Besson just telling Trump. Elon might be doing this. Like I think Elon's kind of the victim here. Like again, I'm not saying this because I'm an Elon fanboy, which I am.
Yeah.
But like, dude committed 6 months of his life towards a program to save money. Then you're going to introduce this bill that rug pulls at half of a year of his work when this guy's worth hundreds of billions of dollars. Him committing 6 months towards something isn't just like myself committing 6 months to something.
Yeah.
It's so different. Like, who knows what he could have innovated on the tech front in those 6 months, but he rather is like, I'm going to do my civil duty, help you out. Hopefully you scratch me down the line and do these cut savings. And all of a sudden, like, no, I'm going to go to the status quo and keep raising the ceiling, etc. Like, I'd be pissed off too. And Sammy's sweetheart, aka Elon Musk, like I would do exactly what he's doing right now.
Sammy didn't stand up for herself the way that Elon did when he came back with the low blow. That's what set this whole thing off. And then, yeah, like coming back to it though, I don't like. Remember when Howard Lindzen was on, and I was like arguing with him a bit. I was like, Elon's in power, Trump's in it. Like, and Howard was like, no, Trump's in charge, and I was like, no. Yeah, I mean, last night he was like, oh, and by the way, we might take away your subsidies. Like, whoa, hello, Jake, who do you think Sammy in that situation? Or would you put another analogy?
I have no idea. I honestly, I probably had too many drinks every time I watched that show when I was in college. I barely remember that, to be totally honest. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're really bringing back the memories.
Well, it was Love Island before Love Island.
It was but they were all Italian. Like it's definitely. Jake, are you from the Midwest or the West?
No, I'm East Coast.
Oh, you have like
North
Midwest
Carolina.
Energy. Okay. Interesting.
Well, I live in Denver now, so yeah,
okay.
Definitely a little more chill.
Yeah, there's on the East. I mean, Shay, you watch that out West?
Jersey Shore? Yeah. I mean, 2011, if you're an 17-year-old and watching Jersey Shore peak, like that's your
like, who are these people?
Oh, my fiance, she's 26. She can't watch it. She's never seen it before. She's too young. And
it's too much.
She just like, whenever I yell Ranny now at her, she now gets it. But so.
Well, speaking of too much, let's talk about Robinhood's event and Vlad's freaking fit. This was in the south of France, I believe. He was wearing an all-white pinstripe suit with a little scarf around his neck. And they made a huge announcement, bigger than even his outfit, which people were going crazy for. They announced they're taking a big swing in tokens. This was kind of expected because they were hyping this event to catch a token for a while, but their shares were up 13% Monday. So what they're doing is they're launching crypto stock tokens in the European Union. So EU users of Robinhood can access tokenized versions of 200 plus US stocks and ETFs, including Apple, Nvidia, Microsoft, and then some private companies like SpaceX and OpenAI. So Shay, I want to go to you because I think this could be the start of something new and different, a new dimension maybe of the public markets that we haven't experienced yet, where it's this intersection between crypto and traditional finance. What do you think this move signals for Robinhood and for some of the other brokerage players out in the market now?
for me specifically, when I saw that, one word came to light, and it was pain, because I added this name on my watch list when it was $20, and now it's about to hit $100. And this was like a year ago. So I was just like experiencing a tilted feeling. But taking my ego and pride away from this equation of my reaction on that event, I think it proved why Robinhood is Robinhood. They can put a wrapper on any kind of product launch, and it's elite. And that's the marketing. That's why they're more of a media company almost now than just a standard brokerage. Like, whoever calls Robinhood just a normal brokerage is lazy in their due diligence of what this company has become. They're essentially becoming somewhat of a media company underneath this like brokerage label, because that event, I guarantee, like, I want to put SoFi is a great product as well, but like Noto could care less about what kind of wrapper he puts around these or innovative products.
He's not rocking the seersucker either.
He's not at all. And like now, like, it gives me confidence that maybe I can rock that for my wedding, because him and I have the same complexion. And I was like, I don't know if I can be white, but now I'm like, maybe I can. But no, I just think that just having that Robinhood logo on the pool, it felt very Amalfi Coast, Europe, like type of crypto. I was like, this guy gets it. He has his finger on his pulse. And having an elite product is fine. Be able to communicating effectively is even more important than just an elite product. And I think Robinhood has combined that skill set of being able to communicate a narrative while having the best of class product. And you're seeing their ability to constantly innovate every quarter. Like, it's not an annual thing anymore. 3 months ago, it's predictive markets. Right now, it's the EU tokenization. Who knows what's going to be in Q4 or Q3 of this year? Like, their ability to constantly innovate organically without having to acquire it proves to me that they know where the puck's heading, and they're going to constantly be in front of where the next bottleneck of attention or engagement is going to be.
Yeah. And Jake, I don't know if you spotted this, but so this Robinhood's news is in Europe, but Republic, which is another investing platform, announced tokenized assets in the US the week prior. So they probably heard this was coming out or thought it was and was like, we'd scoop them. And everyone's like,
Anthropic's on that one too. You can buy Anthropic through Republic.
Yeah. So I'm curious, Jake, from your view as a trader, are these new vehicles interesting to you? Are you like exploring them or thinking about exploring them as part of your trading strategy? And if so, how would that fit in?
I think it depends on how liquid, they are. That's kind of the main thing I look for is liquidity. So I would just have to see kind of how everything kind of plays out. But I do think that a rising tide lifts all ships. So this type of kind of news coming out, it's not going to just be one company that's doing it. So I don't know if that creates hype around other companies, or it just is like one of those things where it was cool for a week and then nobody really cares about it. So I think it's still way early on to even get too excited, but I do think, Robinhood is, I was looking at the market cap yesterday, like an $80 billion company now, which is just crazy to me. So I do think just the fact that you've got so much money flowing into this type of new product and way of investing tells me that there's a lot of money to be made potentially in other parts of the market that are going to catch up, or maybe there's going to be some acquisitions, things like that, where just from the basic stock market, old school way of doing things, I think that could create opportunities and some of these companies that are going to be riding the coattails of Robinhood and some of some of these other companies.
Yeah. I will say though, like, Robinhood does have a premium right now. It does currently right now, if you want to use traditional comps, but it deserves a UI premium. Like, I think a lot of people now, first off, their UI is unmatched. No, there's not even a tier 2. Like, it's tier Robinhood and tier 3s. There's no it's a huge gap. And I think that's the sense of comfort now on being in the Robinhood's ecosystem is at a point where it's never been before, even the GameStop fiasco. And you're seeing a CEO who's not ever going to shy away from spotlight, good or bad. When we were at the Stocktwits Awards, that clip of Ben and Emil just roasting Vlad during the troubling times, I guarantee 99% of the CEOs in that position, they would have been in some cave somewhere hiding it out. He stuck it out, and he was just like,
He should have never left the
Racing
cave
it.
with that outfit he was wearing. That was bad. That's, by the way, if you guys missed it, we'll bring up the clip again at some point. But like, his outfit was so bad. That's why every time he looks decent, we make a big deal of it, because his journey to this point has been treacherous. It's been long, but he's doing it.
Who had the bigger turnaround, him or Zuck on?
Oh, definitely Vlad.
I think Zuck. Interesting. You don't remember? Everyone hated Zuck like 5
Zuck
years
looks
ago.
like an
Do
NYU
people like him
student who's
now?
gonna hit on me in
I
the
think,
East
I think
Village.
people like him now. Like people embrace Zuck a little.
Well,
doesn't
yeah,
have the
boat,
swag,
the
though.
boat thing, the boat and the American flag. I wonder if that's going to pop up again this week. Him
saw
on his
there
boat
was-
with his
Right.
nose completely covered in sunscreen.
I didn't know
I
where
liked
that
him
was
there.
going.
I don't know. I don't have a problem with him, but I do like, Vlad. Like, he just seems like a cool dude. I
Yeah.
think would be fun to have a beer with. But
Definitely.
Zuckerberg, like, I don't know.
And
I'm
one
not
thing,
fully convinced.
yeah, one thing about this European move with Robinhood is, keep in mind, the brokerages in the US, trading US stocks is a pain in the ass. Not in the US. It is a huge pain in the ass. So it's hard to grow there if you're a US based company. I can't imagine like this is going to drive so many signups and just net new user growth in Europe from this. Notwithstanding like even the revenue impact down the line.
Yeah,
Because
I was
it's
just
such a wedge product. Like,
I
if
was
this is
just
a
in
reason
Europe,
yeah,
and it
go
was
for it.
the IBKR Interactive Brokers was like, because I was I was just kind of working on my laptop, and this guy, one of the managers at this restaurant, is kind of just a small little outside restaurant, kind of right on the walkway in Split, Croatia. And this guy got really excited about crypto, and he was a really nice guy, awesome dude. But I'm like, do you trade US stocks? Like, how does that work? He's like, yeah, it's kind of hard. So, I mean, like, that market in general is pretty much completely controlled by Interactive Brokers. That's pretty much the only way you can trade US stocks based on what he told me. So
There's some other players, but
kind of a
it's
dinosaur.
hard. Yeah.
Interactive Broker is kind of like the dinosaur at this point. That's the way I look at it.
Totally. All competitors are like dinosaurs. And like, if you guys, first off, I already have envy like Arnie Trends. I think his Twitter account's Arnie something. Trenzy, I think is his last name. That guy's an OpenAI and SpaceX owner now because he lives in Europe. And I have envy. I think Europe is an untapped market. And I think Robinhood just gone to the UK recently, if that. So I think like this is going to be their Trojan horse to enter that disruptive like environment where IBKR, a lot of people use them because they hate UI. It's just a great product, but ugly. I think a lot of people want a nice wrapper now around their things. They're not just satisfied with efficiency. They want a vibe, if you want to call it that.
What do you guys think of like if you're on the like a CFO or on the IR team of a publicly traded company? Do you see this? Are you like wigging out? Like how would this impact your day to day? Like Shay, you did a lot of corp dev, corp strategy. Like, are they freaking out, or are they like, oh, this is an opportunity?
CFOs don't think that way. They could care less. I think CIO is the same thing. It's more of the CEO. If the CEO, first off, this is how it's going to go. The board is going to push the CEO of like, how are you not capitalizing on whatever this competitor is doing, where it feels like a low hanging fruit, but clearly it's getting a lot of eyeballs. Then the CEO is going to put pressure on the CTO or COO, and then CFO usually is like the Robin to the Batman, but they're never in the room, if that makes sense. Like they're just like always the ones as they're really important, but they're never in the first or second wave of any kind of major discussion. They're more of a make sure this doesn't get too bad type of thing.
Yeah.
So I think CEOs are probably feeling the pressure from the board of directors, especially if their stocks are lagging and like the market's at an all-time high and you're still 30 to 40% below your all-time high. I'm sure they're getting some pressure on like, what are you doing? And that's why we're seeing like a huge vacuum of spend on AI, because every board of directors 6 months ago are telling CEOs like, how are you getting ahead of AI? And now these CIOs, CTOs are just overspending on BS middleware products. And that's where you're seeing software names kind of catch a bid. But I digress. I went somewhere else than you asked, but yeah.
You never know where I plan to go. It's wherever you want to take us. Jake, you mentioned earlier maybe some impacts on other stocks similar to Robinhood, and I know you've been tracking WeBull. let's take a look at what you're spotting with those guys, because they have been getting a lot of chatter and buzz on Stocktwits. They really have been since they IPO'd. It's one of those meta meme stocks where you can trade on the platform that you're with the asset you're investing in. So walk us through what you're seeing with WeBull.
Yeah, so I mean, I was trading WeBull back in May, and then they had the incentive warrant news. Pretty much those expired yesterday, or the ability to redeem them expired yesterday. So I was pretty much avoiding this name, and I think most traders were, because warrants is just a scary, everyone thinks, oh, dilution, all that. So I think that's why you've pretty much seen it flatline for the last 3+ weeks. And then finally yesterday, that was the day where I was going to start getting interested in it again. And so we did get a nice pop. I don't know how much of that was due to everyone knowing the warrants were going to be finally kind of, water under the bridge, or it was a sympathy play with Robinhood. Regardless, a lot of people don't really care about the market cap. I generally am comparing market cap. So with Webull, I mean, it's like a $5 or $6 billion market cap. And, to me, I just mentioned Robinhood being an 80 billion. Now, Robinhood does have a ton more users and all, there's reasons why it's bigger, but, this type of company, I think, will easily be 10 to 15 billion. Now, the question is how much dilution happens for that market cap to get there. Meaning, if they add a ton of shares on the open market, and, price could be literally exactly where it is today, and there's more shares, and it could be a $10 billion market cap. So I think it just depends on, how they're able to kind of, do what they're going to do with their outstanding shares. And with warrants and all of that always kind of becomes a little bit of an issue. However, I'm just speaking technically. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen Bollinger Bands this tight before. So Bollinger Bands are essentially just looking at the standard deviation, 2 standard deviations above the 20-day moving average. Well, in this case, we're on the daily, so the 20-day moving average, or if you're on the 5 minutes, the 20-period moving average, which is the last 5-minute candles. So the reason these Bollinger Bands get really, really tight is because the moving average pretty much flattens out. So the standard deviation, gets very, very tight because price is pretty much flatlined. So generally, and this is something I was fortunate enough to interview John Bollinger a couple of years ago, and one of the
John
biggest
Bollinger of Bollinger Bands fame?
Yeah,
The
yeah, he's
guy.
awesome. He's a cool guy. Yeah,
Damn.
he's really cool. So,
Continue. That's very impressive. I didn't know that person was still around and
oh
chatting
yeah,
with people like us. It's
oh yeah.
great.
No, he's very open to conversation with anyone. He's a very humble guy. Now, there is a point where Bollinger Bands, when they get really tight, whatever direction price closes above, whether it's the upper band, which is the red band here, or the green band, which is the lower band, a lot of people are like, oh, think generally that the upper band is resistance. And sometimes it can be, or the lower band being support. That's totally the case, especially if they're very wide. But if they're very, very tight like this, generally the buy trigger, or essentially the bull thesis trigger, or the bear thesis trigger, is that close and break above either band. So we just closed and broke above that upper band today. Price is extremely pinned here. So generally, pinned means it just hasn't moved. Something is keeping it in an extremely tight range. And so the longer something trades in a very tight range, the bigger the breakout generally is. So bigger the base, higher in space. A lot of people use that term for a reason, because it's generally the case. So, I'm watching for a potentially pretty big move here. It hasn't moved at all with the market. It's been pinned. All of this warrant worries, at least these incentive warrants, are finally done as of yesterday. So I think that's going to bring in a lot of people. That was literally the reason I wasn't trading Webull for the last month, is because I just wanted these warrants to kind of figure themselves out. So if this does kind of create a new wave, this thing is known. We talk about personalities of stock, or I do a lot. And the personality of the stock, this thing can move 20, 30% in a day, no problem at all. And if you think about it, it's a maybe almost $6 billion market cap at this point. That's only $1.5 billion in increased value of the stock. You look at Robinhood yesterday, and it literally added over $8 billion in one day after it's already added probably 30 billion in the last 6 to 8 weeks. So, this thing can move extremely fast due to its lower market cap. I mean, $5 billion isn't a small market cap, but it's definitely not big by any means. I would say it's not a micro cap, it's a small cap. So yeah, I mean, it's got all of the things that I look for a potential move up. A lot of people are stuck in this stock, which one could be an issue, because if let's say everybody bought at $12.50 and they just dealt with a drawdown. Once the price gets back to $12.50, which I think it's already there than pre-market, this is when people decide, okay, am I going to hold now that I'm back to break even, or am I just going to sell and, I got my money back, I'm out. So that's always the question when you kind of get to those areas where a lot of people are back to break even. If you add just like a basic volume profile here, you can kind of see that visually as well. So all of this supply right here is essentially those people who bought in this area from around 1240 up to around 1275. So we'll see what happens right at this area. This is, as I mentioned, this is kind of where everyone is back to break even, or not everybody, but a decent amount of shares. So if price can break above the top of this level, then you don't have a lot of, you kind of have a lot of thin air above. So there's not a lot of people who are kind of break even above here. So, it's kind of like if you're playing football and you get through that first defensive line, you've got you can accelerate pretty quickly because nobody's there to kind of stop you. So you can look at the break-even supply as kind of those defenders kind of looking to stop you from accelerating speed, but there is nothing here. It's pretty wide open. Now this is a function of where you're anchoring the volume profile. I'm anchoring it from this point here. So pretty much the high that we saw back in on May 9th, May 8th, May 9th. So because at this point, this is kind of where we reversed and continued to move lower. So this is kind of where the status quo changed. So you can see here, I mean, if we can get above like 1280 and close above that, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if this thing, especially if the market is kind of having this weird kind of, we just ripped and the market's trying to figure out, okay, what's going on now? You do have these kind of like these micro markets, these stocks that kind of just move on their own. Everybody kind of funnels in because they're like, oh, well, I'm getting screwed on Tesla right now. It's down 5% pre-market. Let me go get my fill of gambling dopamine somewhere else. And so everybody kind of just funnels into these names. Bull, B-U-L-L, it's a word. Generally, these types of tickers like create these meme moves. And it's weird. It's like SoFi, Bull, like anything that the ticker is actually a word. It's really odd, but they generally do kind of get this cult kind of like following dash kind of community around it, and you can really see some big moves. So this is one that I'm definitely watching. Yesterday I could see it getting strong pretty quickly. I got in at like 1121. So I moved, I had, ONDS we talked about before. That was a really solid trade for me. So I moved some of that capital into this. And so I'm looking to see, how this can move. I think it could easily get to 14. From 14, that's when things get a little interesting. Here's just another basic previous resistance zone from
Jake,
late
the
May.
analogy with the defensive line, like if you could make an analogy to the NFL, is it like the Jets? Like how weak is this defensive line?
Well,
Like,
I mean, it doesn't matter. It could be literally Kansas City. Once you get through that defensive line,
okay, it's fine. You're in the clear.
there's
You're
nobody
off.
there. So you could be playing the best team in the world.
Okay.
It's just getting through that initial group of people defending the line. Once you get past that, there's not a ton of people that are going to stop you if you really kind of take off. So, but yeah,
Okay.
who knows? I mean, the Jets, yeah, that would be a great analogy because you could get through, price
I
could
was
get
saying
through that pretty
we're
quick.
about like as soon as the market opens, we're gonna pop right through there.
Yeah.
Well,
So it's
Shy, you shared a tweet also, Shy, showing, and then we gotta let you go in a couple minutes, but SoFi was drafting off the Robinhood announcement. So it's a different situation, right? With a WeBull versus a SoFi. And I'll let you speak on
I don't
that, and
think
then I
it
know we
is, though.
gotta
That's the thing.
lose you.
I really don't think it is. I think a lot of people, like what Jake's alluding to right there, is like everyone is and their mother is seeing what Robinhood's doing. Like they're about to be $100 billion company, $100. Who's next? Where do the eyeballs go? They go to SoFi, they go to Webull. And I think that's why SoFi's, technically speaking, SoFi's is breaking out of a multi-year stage 2 base. Like it's been a long stage 2 base. I think Webull right now, it's a newer IPO. It's still kind of forming these bases, but I've had multiple people hit me up like, what do you think about Webull? Why are they hitting me up? I'm not a fintech person. It's because they're clearly watching what's happening on Robinhood. They want to see who's next.
Yeah.
And Webull right now is a $5 billion company. They have $1 billion in cash, half a billion in ARR, and it's a new IPO. New IPOs provide some kind of a spice to it, where like you just don't know what's going to happen. So
Yeah.
I think that Webull right now, what Jake's called it out perfectly. If it clears $12, I think it's going to hit the May high of $17 or $18. There's a magnet there, and that defense level. My framing of that is once it clears resistance, it's in discovery mode. It's gonna essentially run until the next level of resistance. And when those volume profiles I saw, there really isn't a next level resistance until the previous high. So that's why it can really just fly out there. I don't know the float situation of the stock. I don't know all that stuff terms, but I know I can speak on the appetite out there. And the appetite is I missed out on Robinhood. I
Yeah.
don't want to miss out on
What's
another
next?
Robinhood. Who is next?
Yeah.
SoFi A, WeBull B. SoFi
Yeah.
is running hard. And I know Dano Newman, my partner at Future, he loves SoFi. A lot of really smart
Dude
people love
loves SoFi. Every time
Yeah.
I open X.
He's nailed it.
Yeah.
And I think Webull, maybe they have another, it's a trade, but maybe it's a great trade. I don't know how they're going to fit in this future world, but fintech of everything's some kind of wrapper and tomato, like it's all similar, same
Yeah.
product. But yeah,
But it is Robinhood built that on their own. Whereas we were talking about before the show, there's at least one company. There's probably others. There's one company called Zero Hash. They're building this so you could just buy this as a service if you are a WeBull. Or so the technical friction to getting there isn't what Robinhood did to get there, theoretically.
yeah,
It's just building off of this now. This is a private company, but there's probably other people doing it too. But then if you think about that, all you got to do is have adoption on the concept of tokenized securities, and then boom, you buy versus build, and you're like off to the races. So I think that's something that's interesting too to think about. You don't need to believe that Webull can build this themselves to believe that they could draft off of it. Shy, I know you got to go because you have a million things to be doing. Where should we be watching you in New York this week? I know you have some appearances. Where can we be following you?
yeah.
Keep us in the loop.
I got to book it to Yahoo Finance. I'm going to go into their studios. I'm going to be on Fox Business later today on Charles' show. Tomorrow, I'm going to be on the NYSC floor doing a Schwab Network hits. And then I'm doing the streets, and I'm doing another one. I'm blanking on the fifth one.
All right.
And then I'm doing Compounding and Friends on Thursday. That's going to be a fun one. I am
all white suits coming out with the scarf.
Yeah, I should rock that. I'm a little
Definitely
tilted for the Compounding and Friends because they beat me for Creator of the Year. I'm like,
Oh,
listen, if Michael or Josh brings that trophy at the table, there might be some objects being thrown around in the room.
you know they're going to.
We'll see, but
We'll be watching you all the places, Shy. Best of luck.
yeah, see you guys tomorrow morning. I'll be here. Same
Yes,
spot.
see you tomorrow.
Good luck.
Yes, thank you.
All right, yeah, we got a big show tomorrow. We have a reporter coming on from Front Office Sports, and he's just been tracking the prediction markets. Like,
Nice.
so he's gonna be kind of giving us the 411 on everything he's been seeing. But yes,
Can I go back to this Webull chart? I just want to like
we
show
can
how.
always go back to whatever chart you want, Jake.
Okay, beautiful. So it always just fascinates me to see how this stuff plays out. So we're gonna pull back WeBull here. So kind of like right what I was saying, and I just took off the Bollinger Bands because honestly, I love the Bollinger Bands. But I am like so OCD about my charts, like they have to be clean. So
Yeah.
let's take those off. But yeah, I mean, you can see literally what's happening right now. It's been what time is it? It's been 5 minutes since the open or whatever. And this is exactly where we're finding resistance. So this is literally where, we have to figure out, okay, you kind of just have to get through that supply because like I said, imagine that. So all of this volume right here, you can just essentially use an arrow and you can pretty much say all of this volume happened here. So that's all of this consolidation right here, this kind of bear flag that formed, that's all that volume. So imagine that you just bought within this area. Let's say you bought on the 22nd around, 1275. Well, then you just dealt with a 20% drawdown. Okay. So then from there, and you held, you're like, okay, I love WeBull, I believe in it. Then from this low, your 20% drawdown, now all of a sudden you're back to break even. So you're like, okay, well, that sucked because the market was ripping while I was just holding this unrealized loss. Do I want to sell or do I just want to hold through? That's kind of what this is what price is showing right now. These people are saying, okay, do I want to hold? Do I not want to hold? So this is like exactly case study what you would expect at this level. I call it break even supply because it is people who are back to break even and they're trying to figure out, do I take half off the table? Do I take a fourth off the table? Do I just sell the whole thing and go buy a bunch of Tesla because I think Tesla's a buy right now because it's gone down? Who knows? But that is the psychology of what is happening around this general area. So, once price can close above that area, and that is right at 1285, then your next upside target generally is ranging from about 1350 up to around 1420, 1425. So, I look at everything as an if then statement. So if price can close above the top of this area, then my next upside target is this previous high. If price can close above this previous high, and I need to expand this a little bit, which is, I think, 1425. If price can close above 1425 above the zone, then I mean, you literally have just blue skies ahead. And at this point, if WeBull did get up to this 14 area, it would start trending on social media a lot more. I'm sure on Stocktwits, the sentiment would just be going through the roof, which sometimes, if sentiment gets too frothy, that's kind of something to worry about because if everybody's in the trade, who's the next
right? Who's
institution or person to move the price up higher? So yeah, if we can get above 1425, that's when I think we could really move. And if you like gaps in prices, I generally will use gaps as well. There is a little sneaky little gap here that I keep forgetting is here. Gap fills right at 1613. So, the way I look at a gap is just the difference between the two wicks. So for subscribers who are watching who asked me this question, I haven't put out a video yet. The actual gap, especially if you're like following CMT kind of guidelines and all that. So I have my CMT level 1, level 2. I didn't get level 3 yet, but the actual gap is not considered the closing price and the opening price. The actual gap is this little area between the low of the previous candle and the high of the other candle. So this gap right here ranges pretty much from 16 to 1613. So that would be my initial target if there was a daily close above 1425. That gap, these gaps generally act as kind of magnets for price, kind of just price moves towards areas of low liquidity. And this gap is one, it's a volume gap. There's no volume here. And then two, it's actually a price gap. So 1613 is definitely the main area I would watch. But it's like anything, right? People are like, well, when do you think it's going to get to 25? And I'm like, well, first of all, we have to close above 1285 to even think about 1350 to 1425. We can't even think about 1613 until there's a daily close above 1425. So you have to take things in increments. You can't just say, you can't just have this vision in your mind, oh, we bull at 25, because there's so many different hurdles you have to jump over first before you start thinking about the next thing. And that's one of the biggest issues I see with traders is they already start thinking something's happened. That was one of the reasons I got a little nervous about Pepsi, which I want to go over Pepsi as well. People were talking about Pepsi like, I can't wait for this move to happen. Like, as a trader, never say that.
Yeah.
Never say, I can't wait for this to happen, because you are jinxing yourself. You're jinxing everybody else who's on the same side as you. So just do everybody a favor and never say, I can't wait for the price to do this, because you're already speaking like it happened, and there is no guarantee in the market at all.
Yeah. Jake, before we hop over to Pepsi, this resistance point you called out, I know you don't necessarily care, but like based on other patterns you've seen like this, what type of catalyst would push through? Would it be just like the market overall just starts ripping and they're riding the wave, or something specific happening to
Honestly, I
WeBull?
think it's the opposite. I think if you
Oh,
see Robinhood and SoFi start to pull back after huge moves, that money wants to move somewhere else. So
okay.
everybody says, okay, well, musical chairs, SoFi's already moved, Robinhood's already moved. I'm taking my profits in these and I'm riding the laggard.
Interesting. Okay.
And
Interesting.
and like honestly, the market pulling back would probably help this, because this hasn't done anything for the last month, whereas the market's hitting new all-time highs. So everyone's always, whether they like to admit it or not, there's people who will say, oh, I just trade the leaders. Okay, that's great. But most people are looking for a deal, a discount on something. So
Got it.
they are looking for that stock that hasn't moved yet. And that's kind of the way I look at it. I know we've talked about this before. I don't want to know what's already moved, because I don't know when that's gonna stop moving. I want to know what's lagging, and what's that laggard is probably going to do what the leader did. And so it's
Yeah.
really just a cycle.
When you look for like laggards, are you looking like within a specific category? Like which names are not
Well,
moving like the others, or how do you what's like the filter you apply to even start that search?
Well, I mean, you could do it sector by sector. So in this case, WeBull, SoFi, Robinhood are all in the same kind of sector, if you want to call it that, same group of stocks that are kind of representing brokerage and all this
Yeah.
crypto exposed. People can now trade crypto more and all that. So it's all that kind of same category. So you kind of just look for, okay, what's moved, what hasn't, and in a stock like WeBull, um, you haven't had any movement at all. So it's not even just SoFi and Robinhood. It's honestly also the market in general. People are like, all right, well, Nvidia just hit like almost 160. AMD just ripped like 20% in like no time. So people are kind of they're looking for the next play. What hasn't moved yet? So that's the way I look at the market. Some people like, Brian Shannon, one of my biggest mentors, he doesn't look at the market like that at all. He wants to play what's moving up. And we have conversations about this all the time. I'm looking for like what's bottoming out and what's lagging. He's looking for the leaders and the momentum. And so it's always funny because he'll send me a chart and he'll say, yeah, I think this is one you'd like, because it's just totally different from
Yeah.
what he looks at. So but that's what makes a market.
Yeah. Everyone
For
has
every
different
seller there's a
styles.
buyer, for every buyer there's a seller. So there's a reason somebody's selling, there's a reason someone's buying. And whatever group, bulls or bears, whoever has a stronger conviction is the one that price is generally going to follow. So yeah, I mean, if you look at Webull, this is just literally exactly what you would have expected today. Gapped up right to this area, and now you're just kind of going through this supply. I have no idea what the rest of the market's doing right now, but
We could take a look. I'm glad we're talking about Webull because I feel like they IPO'd and they were all the rage, and then they kind of had their thunder stolen. eToro went out.
mhm.
Robinhood's make it so fine. It's like I forgot about Webull. Good old Webull.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the market in general, like if I was looking strictly at technicals, and you have to remember, like the last few weeks has been all about the window dressing. So I think the first time I was on this show, Shy and I talked about the window dressing, which was essentially all these institutions were on the sidelines. And so going into Q3 or the end of Q2, they wanted to get exposure on the books. So that ended yesterday. Today is a new quarter. So all of a sudden, all that kind of panic buying pressure has stopped. So the market doesn't even have to pull back because there's a bunch of sellers. It could simply pull back just because those buyers really aren't there holding the price up.
Mm.
And if for anyone that's trading the markets or doing technical analysis, especially if you're looking at price action and how volume works, if you don't have a basic understanding of supply and demand curves, I would just highly recommend just looking at just a basic YouTube video. I have a YouTube video on it. I think it's like, how can price move up without demand or something? And it's the same thing, right? Prices can move up if sellers just go away, right? So if you
Mhm.
look at supply demand curves, if selling dries up and demand remains constant, you have a shift in the supply curve which actually creates the equilibrium price to go up without any new buyers stepping in.
Right.
If demand remains constant, supply decreases, you get an increase in price. So like those little things, those nuances that a lot of people don't think about are really important, because everyone's like, oh, sellers are coming in or buyers are stepping away. It's like, yeah, but that's not always telling the whole story.
Yeah, and the magnitude of those forces, it makes a lot of sense. I know you want to talk about Pepsi too.
Yeah. I
What
mean,
were you
Pepsi is the
seeing
same thing.
over with Pep?
Yeah, so it's so it's kind of been a mix of things. So if we look at the Bollinger Bands here, I mean, this is other than other than Bull, this has been literally one of the most pinned stocks I have seen in a long time. I mean, it's very rare to see a stock trade in this narrow of a range for 8 weeks. I mean, that's crazy. And so, I knew we were getting close when you had a very, very slight undercut of this low, right? So technical traders are always looking for a break above or below a high or low to kind of trigger something. So right now we are having a pretty significant trigger, right? All of these traders who are looking for a break of the range are finally starting to get interested in Pepsi because it's finally breaking above the high from May 8th. I think there was a slightly higher high here on June 13th, which was 133.06. But either way, we've broken above both of those. So you're kind of getting new market participants interested in this now. You're breaking out of this range, and that's what creates next legs, right? It's kind of like passing the hot potato, right? People like me, I'm just looking for like the first magnitude of the reversal.
First sign of
I'm
life.
I'm just looking for the first kind of meat of the move. And then people like me who are using MACD, oversold RSI, percent range, those types of things, who are using the lower indicators to look for reversal, that's kind of the first group of people who kind of create a bottom. From there, you have the price action traders who then come in and say, okay, Pepsi's had a good last few days. It's gone up from around 127.60 as of yesterday to around 132. However, it's still not out of the woods. We're still in this range. Now, as Pepsi's breaking out of this range, this is when you have that next leg of buyers coming in. So you were asking about, what triggers a next leg. It's the market participants. Now, market participants who are looking at breaks above a specific price, they're range breakout traders. Now they're getting interested. That creates a next essentially level of buying pressure, or a round of buyers stepping in. And that's what will likely bring that in. Now, if we were just to throw the Bollinger Bands on, as I mentioned, shout out John Bollinger for coming on the show that I had a few years ago.
Like, I know the guy who made the bands. No big deal.
When you have the bands expanding like this, you generally will just see price ride up along the band. So especially especially after a reversal like this, right off the lower band, generally you're going to get this kind of expansion. So it's kind of like a volatility expansion. So the reason those bands are expanding is because you have a bigger range that price is trading in as a function of this blue line, which is the 20-day moving average. So if price continues to move up, the volatility, the range of what price is doing is going to expand, and that's what creates these bands expanding. And so if we look at what, I mean, it's very rare for the bands to have been this tight for this long. I'll have to go find an example here.
Does this show early signs of breaking out more so than WeBull, or are they about in the same predicament?
They're about the same. So here's an example, right? So very similar to what we just looked at. So let me just get rid of this. Let me zoom in. I mean, it's kind of weird how similar this is, and that's what I look for, is like what has happened in the past and where where are we now? So in this case, similar situation from August to beginning of August to end of September, we were range bound. You have this final sweep of liquidity. So, everybody had their stop loss right here, or maybe 1 or 2% from this low. So the low was right at 152.42. Once price broke and closed below that, you had this kind of final shakeout, and then you had the big reversal. Now, this is kind of where what I just described is likely going to happen, where price starts to test this upper band and price just rides along this band. And so if we go to the current price now, you'll see that literally same thing starting to take shape here, where if I can get to it, yellow, where you are starting to kind of get this move and grind along the band. So the band will likely continue to expand, and price generally will just kind of ride up along that. So this is also a laggard, right? The market has moved up pretty good since the beginning of May. This has done nothing. So everybody's looking for a deal. And Pepsi, I mean, it's a value stock. It's people are going to continue to drink soda and eat junk food. It's just going to happen, whether, RFK's in his position or not. So unless they ban Fritos and, Pepsi, which they're not going to do, this isn't going anywhere.
I mean, Pepsi also owns Gatorade, Doritos.
They own a massive number of brands.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't think about that. They're like, oh, Pepsi. Like, why are you like
no one drinks Pepsi? It's like, well, yeah.
That's smart on the management to realize that okay, we need to have kind of a portfolio of brands that we own. So yeah, I mean, for me, if we wanted to quickly go to the weekly candle, this is where I get pretty excited, because this is where you have a massive volume gap here. So kind of like what we just talked about on bull, you've got this volume shelf, i.e. this is where a lot of volume has aggregated, and notice how price has really not been able to get above this. It's called the point of control. It's the largest volume bar here. So this is and each one of these bars represents a range of price where there's a specific amount of volume. So if you were to zoom in real quick, just to give, because I get a lot of questions on this bar right here, this is pretty much saying from around 130.30 to right around 130.65. We are measuring how much volume happened within that range. So this is clearly the biggest volume node within this period of time that we're measuring. The period of time that we're measuring from is the August 2024 pivot. The reason I'm measuring the volume profile from there is that's kind of when we had a big status quo. That was our high before we really tanked. So I want to see what's going on pretty much since that reversal and that kind of change in trend. So back to the football analogy, we just got through the defensive line. Now we're like in this part of the field where there's nobody here. You can really start to accelerate because nobody's really back to break even.
Yep.
Until you get up to like 143. So this area kind of acts as a vacuum for price. Price
Okay.
can just move extremely quickly through it. And it really is like, it's kind of fascinating to see how quickly sometimes price can move through these areas. They have earnings coming up. So this is another catalyst where, you may have some anticipatory buying into the event. And then depending on if this does move a lot, that's where I will like kind of reconsider, do I want to hold this position? I have options right now. So I kind of like to buy options before earnings, because then the implied volatility starts to increase the contract price, because people are anticipating a big move from a binary event like earnings. So I would anticipate, I'm not sure if they've announced earnings yet, but if once they do, I would assume you'd get that anticipatory buying. And then, the upside target would be, and notice here, this is the anchored VWAP. This is the volume weighted average price from this reversal before we hit a new low. It's right in line with this break-even supply. So that's right around 144.85. So this will be a cool case study to kind of come back to maybe in the next couple of weeks and see where it's at and how it's moved.
Well, it looks like their earnings are on a very important day. Their earnings are on my birthday,
Oh,
July
well,
17th.
are they
Emoji
are
day.
is that are they confirmed on the 17th?
I think I see it.
Okay.
Stock Titan says yes.
Okay.
Pepsi should yes.
I have heard the 17th from a few people. I just thought
Okay.
that was the estimated,
Oh,
but
they're estimated. Maybe. Okay.
if it's not,
We'll verify. You know what's throwing me off? This Google AI summary. It's like
yeah,
pulling non-first party sources. I hope it's
yeah.
on my birthday. That would be exciting and fun.
Yeah, I generally use earnings whispers for like any confirmation. There's no problem with them. They're amazing, but they only announce the earnings a week before. So like on Friday, they come out
Yeah.
with the earnings for the next week. So I've
Yeah.
worked with them a couple times. So sometimes I'll just send them a DM and see, okay, hey,
Yeah.
is
What's going on?
there a confirmation? So I will do that and confirm like if that's
Either way, it's coming
the case.
soon in the next
Yeah,
3
historically, it's
weeks.
in and one interesting thing about the seasonality for Pepsi, since 1975, Pepsi has a 71% win rate for the month of July. So that means essentially from the close at the end of June, 71% of the time the price is higher at the close of July than it was June. So
Not bad.
July, that's the second strongest month of the year for um, Pepsi. Shout out to TrendSpider. Used to work at TrendSpider, and I still use the platform, especially for seasonality. And so I just took a peek yesterday, and they did mention, or they did show that July is relatively a strong month. Who knows? Maybe it's like everybody's going and ordering, junk food,
Mountain
Pepsi.
Dew to the
Yeah,
dome on the 4th of July.
yeah. I don't know if that's
I
like
don't
a
know how you
thing.
spend your 4th of July.
Yeah, nothing like a nice, nothing like a absolute just
Mountain Dew,
to
I
the
will say
face,
that
Mountain Dew
disgusts
to the
me.
face.
Yeah, it disgusts me.
I
But
didn't even know it's still around, to be honest.
they actually have an energy drink version of Mountain Dew now. So
Oh,
that's the big thing.
sounds
I think
horrible.
I saw. I wasn't sure it was Pepsi, but all like the significant growth in revenue for all these companies coming from the energy drinks. They own Rockstar Energy. Like they own the most like toxic ones. Rockstar, Amp, Mountain Dew Energy, which I think just needs to be tried to be believed. But yeah, Mountain Dew is still, people are still doing the dew. It's crazy.
Yeah. No, I use bullflow.io for my options flow.
Okay.
It's still pretty early in the day, so there's not a ton of options flow coming in. But I mean, you do have, you've got. So this is interesting. So 135, it's only a $13,000 order, so it's not much. But you are starting to see these shorter term expirations popping up. I saw a $435,000 order yesterday come in for the 135s expiring on July 18th. So I mean, somebody's essentially risking $435,000 on this trade, expecting price to move above 135 by the 18th. For Pepsi, that's a decent move. Pepsi overall doesn't have the strongest, the strongest just volatility. I mean, 2%, 3% for Pepsi is a big day. 2% or 3% for Tesla is like the pre-market action. So that's kind of where the
Someone's
personality of
going
the
for
stock
it.
comes in.
I wish
Yeah.
them the best.
Yeah, man, I do
I
too.
wish them the best. Jay, it was awesome to see the charts. I know there's a lot. We have so many other things we could talk about, but I know you're back Tuesday. I just checked in on the Senate. I'm on C-SPAN. I like to check in on these dorks sometimes.
No, you got to.
They don't work that much. We got people blowing kisses to the camera, and I
Yeah.
feel like Congress is like, it's apolitical to dunk on them. Nobody likes them.
No,
You know?
totally. It doesn't matter
Like,
what
look at
party
these
they are, they
morons.
suck.
They haven't slept, but like
Yep.
they're complaining. You can tell they just want to go home, and it's like this week at work. No one's putting out their best work this week. Let's not lie. Like, this bill's going to be
Totally.
jacked 4 ways to who knows what, because everyone just wants to get out of there.
Good thing.
Absolutely.
Look,
Bob, working. It's a good thing for the taxpayer for them to be working. But that seems to be.
I mean, I can't. I don't know.
To ask somebody to work.
That's enough of that. Well, let's hope they find some consensus, or they're just gonna like wing it, and who knows what we're gonna get.
Yeah.
But glad they're working, because we're working a lot more than they are, apparently.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see with because I do like to look at sentiment on Stocktwits, so it'll be interesting to see a nice case study for Bull to see how that does.
Yeah. We're waiting. The Votorama. They need a better name. That's lame. But again, they're dorks. So. Votorama.
Yeah.
All right, Jake. I'll let you go because I know you got trading to do. Thank you for swinging by. And we can't wait to have you back next week with some more fun in the charts. I learned a lot. And have a happy 4th.
Hey, you too. And yeah, I'm excited for the short week. Markets close halfway through the day on Thursday. So I'm looking forward to it.
Good. And we have our final show of the week tomorrow, so tune in for that. And we'll see you next week, Jake. Bye, everyone.
Yep.